Okay, this is part two of of Dalet and Aleph. I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties these days, but let's continue. The last thing we spoke about was this question of mezuzah, and it's a mezuzah chovas hadarhi. That mezuzah is particularly the obligation of the resident. Why is that? So Rashi gives two reasons. One is that mezuzah. Why do you have a mezuzah? You have a mezuzah to protect the person who's living there. That is important to the tenant, not to the one who owns the place. I mean, of course, they care, they're sensitive, whatever. But the bottom line is the person who it really matters to is the person who's living there. Rashi also quotes a pasuk which seems to indicate this as well, and therefore the Gemara says a proof from mezuzah is not valid. The Gemara says, Hachamai, what's the halacha regarding chametz? Amr Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Tanina, we learned in the Brisa, maskir bais lechaver, a person who rents a house to his friend, im ad shelo mas lo maftechos chal arba asar. If the 14th fell before he handed the keys, elamaskir livdok, then the landlord has to search. In other words, the landlord gives the keys after it's already the 14th, which is when the chiyuv, when the obligation begins, then it's upon the landlord to search for chametz. However, if the 14th was after the keys were given over, after the renter was given the rights to be there, then it is incumbent upon the tenant to search. Okay, so this is very relevant to halacha. Now you can make your own agreement and say, hey, could you do the searching? But the bottom line is, if you come to a place and it's your place before Pesach, even though you're renting, this happened to me this past year. I rented a place from someone. He said, I did a bedika, I checked before I left. Very nice. I still had to do bedika. I was a renter on the 14th. I have to do bedika. Not only that, and there's very important people to know this, and that is that if, let's say, you go to a hotel on Chol Hamoed Pesach, you have to do bedika then, because now it's yours, and therefore you have to do bedika, right? And therefore it's your obligation to do bedika then. Okay, now the Gemara asks a question. By my name, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Let's say a person rents a house on the 14th. Chazkaso badok. Do we assume it was searched, or en chazkaso badok, or do we assume it was not searched? How do we, do we know? We rent the house. I arrive in the house on the 14th. Could I assume that the owner already checked it or not? The Gemara says, what's the difference? Lishayle, ask the guy, ask the renter. What are you making this so complicated? Just ask the person. So the Gemara says, the person's not around. And therefore the question is, do we trouble the tenant to search the house, or can they rely on the fact that presumably the owner checked it before, as he or she was supposed to do? So that's the Gemara's question. We are going to answer this question, God willing, tomorrow. Tomorrow's shir, by the way, for those who are coming in person, is going to take place after Mincha, not before Mincha. After Mincha, have a great day.